Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
It's not the greatest country in the world.
Finally, really did it. You maniac! I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore! You bring them death, and they will love him for it.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Hello, friends and enemies, and welcome to another episode of Recovery from Politics Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Frame, and today is Saturday, March 8th, 2025. So, we're going to do a little week in review. We're going to mourn my Seahawks, who are apparently trading away anything worth a damn because our GM doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I mean, yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't. Yeah, I'm gonna miss winning seasons and being like in the discussion at the end of every year. It's not nice. Anybody who complains about like the Steelers not being able to get over the playoff hump, it's like at least you're there. Like, shut up. I mean, seriously. Yeah, what should I said. But anyway, what we're gonna do this week and what we'll see going forward, and this may change, of course. I'm hoping to get an interview on. I've got a friend who is considering a run for Congress. I'll let you know how that works out. And as of right now, this morning, the Democratic Party in my district is meeting this morning. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, they can be fun. I went to a protest last Sunday. It was a mourning for libraries protest. It was it was okay. A couple dozen people showed up. Really, the fun part was these religious crazies calling us all pedophiles and saying we're going to burn in hell. Apparently, I caused a ruckus with the Rusks. If you've heard of them, they're quite crazy. Apparently, the wife in that couple pair is quite scared of squirrels, which I did not know. Actually, no one knew. But we're going to try it again next time we see him, so that should be fun. Anyway, so what I've been doing for this episode, and we'll see if it works, and if not, who cares? We'll move on. Yeah, that's how the world works. Is over the course of the week, I kept an eye on stories and headlines, and I saw how they developed over time and whether or not it's good. So we're going to start with Monday. We're going to work our way through the week. And what should I said? We're going to see how things go. So, yeah. Anyway, so starting with Monday morning, the first thing I saw was that the Health and Human Services spokesman, who was brought on under the Trump administration, so it wasn't like he was a leftover from the Biden administration, quit after a measles clash with RFK Jr. See, there are actually some people, there are very few, but there are some people on the margins within the Trump administration, within our government, who actually do care. And they do believe in vaccines. And they do believe in washing your fucking hands and maybe wearing a mask. And yeah, sure, maybe they don't necessarily want to police it. Like, there are doctors and government officials who, yes, vaccines work. No, they don't cause autism. Yes, a mask helps the spread problem, it brings it down. Yes, you should still wash your hands. No, you shouldn't lick doorknobs in hallways. You should do that. The only problem is they don't believe that any of it should be mandated. So there's that. They think all of it should be voluntary. Okay, whatever. At least you believe the science. If you don't agree with the policy, I'll give you points for that. But apparently one of these people who believes in the science but doesn't believe in the policies thinks that RFK Jr. is a fucking quack and shouldn't be in charge, and so he quit because he kept telling RFK the measles is one of the most serious infectious diseases on the face of the earth. It will tear through towns and communities, and if you're not vaccinated, it will be 10 times worse than it needs to be, both for the community and for yourself. And RFK Jr. was just sitting there, and at first, remember over the weekend, he didn't say jack nor shit about any of it. But apparently, the spokesman quitting did cause RFK Jr. to go ahead and write an op-ed saying that the measles vaccine is good, actually, and you should go ahead and get one. But that's a parent's decision, and you should do what's best for your kid. And, sorry, what's best for your kid? Get them fucking vaccinated. Idiots. All of you who don't vaccinate are stupid. Unless there's a doctor, a real fucking doctor, not some YouTube quack telling you not to get vaccinated because your kid has an issue or you have an issue, there's something wrong with your immune system, whatever. Get fucking vaccinated. But anyway, RFK Jr. is still a moron. He's still in charge of all this, and he's going to fuck it up. More people have died since Monday because of this measles. Granted, the number is very low. A lot of people still think, oh, it won't be that bad. All these people who are passing away are unvaccinated within communities that are highly, highly, highly unvaccinated as well. So, yeah, we can say the stupid is being punished, but still, even if you are vaccinated, that's not a guarantee you won't catch the disease. Okay, it just reduces the risk. But if everyone around you has measles and you're vaccinated or not, you're probably going to get measles. So let's hope for the best. Also on Monday morning were announces that Mexico and Canada were going to be tariffed at 25% and China would increase from 10 to 20%. Since then, we've gone back, and then we went ahead and did it again, and then Trump came back. And last I saw was that Trump was only doing these tariffs on very, very specific goods from Canada, but I hadn't heard anything about China or Mexico since then. And this is one of those things where you can tell that his brain is fighting with itself, because he's convinced himself tariffs are good. But then he sees the stock market react as though tariffs bad. And his stupid caveman brain can't put those two thoughts together and form a coherent one. So his mouth is still saying tariffs good, but brain is looking at the stock market and going, but stock markets say tariffs bad. So he's all over the place on this. This is why he can't be consistent with this. This is why he can't be trusted on this. Okay, he doesn't understand the basic fundamentals of how any of this shit works. And if you can't even understand how it works, you sure shit shouldn't be making policy based on it. So this is just further evidence of that. The stock market continues to go down. Nobody is liking this at all. Fox News is trying like hell to spin it. Speaker Johnson tried to spin it by saying like, you know, have to understand, we're taking it from the worst economy ever to the greatest economy ever, and sometimes you run into a few bumps. And I'm like, motherfucker, we had 50 straight months of growth under Biden, like him or not. For 50 straight months, shit got better. It was small, it was incremental, but all the trajectory was up. Unemployment was heading down. Like, all the stuff was going in the right direction. And now you're here, and within 2 months of you guys running things, it's the opposite. Unemployment's going up because you decided to fire a shit ton of people for absolutely no reason. And the stock market and all of our growth is going down because companies are scared, so they're retracting. They're not investing like they used to. All this is heading in the wrong direction. And it's all directly because of you. You did this. You did this. So you can try and tell me that the Biden administration did a horrible job, and I agree, they did, but by traditional metrics, the same metrics we're judging the Republican administration by right now, it's going in the wrong direction. Like, I did not like the Biden economy because he didn't understand the nitty-gritty of the people. He understood the numbers. He got it. Like, I understand his point of view where he's like, I don't get it. Stock market's up, unemployment's down, wages are rising. Like, why are the people still pissed off? Why can't I get out of this hole? Like, I understand the frustration there. But the problem was that he didn't understand. People like myself, people like my wife, and a lot of people I know are like, motherfucker, we're getting laid off every 2 years. We can't build a 401k. We can't build equity in our own careers. You know, those numbers mattered when you were like my dad and could go work somewhere for 30 years and retire from it with a pension. But right now, that's not what's happening. And because the Democratic Party as a whole don't understand that, they're going to cling to these Biden numbers right now, politically. They're going to say, these Biden numbers here, these were good. And they're going to convince themselves of that, even though his numbers lost an election to Trump, of all people. They're going to cling to those numbers and say, look, these are great numbers. And so the next administration is going to sit there and they're going to reverse those numbers, and unemployment's going to go down. The Wall Street market will respond. Wages will rise. And yet still their numbers are going to be underwater because they still didn't fix the underlying problem. And until someone does, it's going to be the same situation. Democrats will keep righting the ship on the traditional metrics we've talked about, and Republicans will come in and they'll understand the anger and the frustration, or they'll understand that it's there, but they won't understand why either. And they're like, well, clearly it's because of all the brown people and the trans rights and all this bullshit. And they'll try to do that. They'll try to hide it. They'll arrest homeless people and they'll get them off the streets and they'll try to pretend, if we just paint over this rust, no one will know and everything will be okay and the United States will be great again. We just have to paint over this rust. That's all we have to do. And that's all MAGA is. That's all Trump is. It's a mirage. I'm just painting over this broken system. Look how shiny and new it looks. But underneath, it is rotted. And neither party wants to admit that it's rotted. Or if they do admit that it's rotted, they don't admit how to fix it. And it's a real problem that we're going through right now. And unfortunately, neither party is equipped to deal with it. Neither one of them is speaking to it at all. I still have not yet heard about how layoffs are used to keep wages down, to keep unemployment up, so that companies have a fresh flow of workers to compete for lower wages. It is not addressed. So we're going to keep running into this. And of course, again, if you don't understand the issue, you should not be making policy about it. Trump's going to keep doing this tariff shit. And the stupid thing is, he gives, he takes away, and so he puts them back, and then he takes away, and it's going back and forth. And Canada and Mexico, for fuck's sake, Sheinbaum and Trudeau are sitting there like, what the fuck do we do with this? I'm sorry, when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to trade, consistency is your friend. Other world leaders don't want to sit there and be like, I don't know what the fuck the United States is going to do. They want to know. It makes them feel better. It makes everyone feel better. And then everyone knows Russia's not going to invade Europe. You know why? Because the United States would come in and kick their ass with NATO. But right now you've got Europe all kinds of worried because the United States isn't consistent on anything. And the United States is like, maybe we'll enforce Article 5 of NATO, maybe we won't. It all depends. And you're sitting there and you're Germany or you're Ukraine or you're Britain and you're like, okay, fuck it. Trump, what do we have to do to get you to commit? And he's like, well, how about a non-binding agreement? I take all your resources and I'll maybe help you. What the fuck is that? And speaking of which, the next big thing for Monday was about Ukraine and Russia. Of course, Ukraine, the Orange God King of America, was furious because Zelensky made a comment over in Europe that the war is going to go on for a long time still. He just doesn't see an end to it. And honestly, even if this were Kamala Harris as president, I could understand Zelensky. He's living in it, right? He is the one under attack. His home is being bombed constantly. People are being killed all the time at home. It is very hard to be optimistic when you're in the middle of that shit. So even if this was Harris or Biden won a second term or someone else or another Democratic president, I would understand his point of view. He's living in it. Of course it looks like it's going to go on forever. It's been going on long enough. When you've been going for several years now, and it doesn't look like it's ever going to end, it's been a stalemate for most of that time. Yeah, is this just the new normal? Maybe. That's where his brain is. So I wouldn't take offense to it, but I'm not the Orange God King, who's all kinds of mad because he made a stupid political promise that the war would be over within 24 hours of him being inaugurated. And surprise, it's not. So all military funding has been halted until Trump seems to declare Ukraine as worthy. We don't know what that means. We really don't. The fuck is worthy? And again, this is actually quite stupid because one of the rules about us giving money to Ukraine, and it's a leftover thing from Biden that I also criticized him heavily for, but one of the rules is that 70% of the money that we give to Ukraine has to come back to the United States as weapons purchases. So it's not like Ukraine is taking this money and then shopping around and hey, China, could you make us guns or jets? No, they have to come back to the United States. They have to go to Raytheon and all those companies, General Motors, and they have to say, hey, we need jets and stuff. We have to buy from you. You have to give it to us. They're allowed to make a profit off of it. Ukraine is basically, borrowing money to spend at the person who lended it to them. And I find that morally repugnant. I mean, either you believe in the cause of Ukraine or you don't. Personally, just to separate it and say, I so believe in your moral cause, I believe in your cause so much, we're going to loan this money to you and you are not allowed to spend it in America. That's our money, but you have to spend it somewhere else. I don't want even an inkling of impropriety going on. I don't want anyone to think this is a pay-to-play situation. This is not the taxpayer buying weapons for Ukraine. This is the taxpayer helping Ukraine win a war, and that money goes wherever Ukraine decides, but it can't be American. I would put a complete lock on it and be like, that's how much we believe in your cause. We believe in it so much, we don't want to make a dime off of it. We just want to see you free. But the Biden administration didn't do that. Trump is canceling it, seeming to think that Ukraine's not worthy somehow. This is also going to drive stocks down for those weapons companies, and I'm not shedding a tear over that, but if you're a stock person, this does suck. So those companies are going through that. And again, there's no... What the fuck does Trump want on this? He doesn't even know. Or at least if he does know, he hasn't articulated it to the rest of us, which, I wouldn't hold my breath on that too much. But meanwhile, also on Monday, Russia... The Orange God King of America has ordered the removal of sanctions on Russia. So all those sanctions that have been placed on Russia over the years, ever since Obama and Crimea, there have been sanctions put on Russia, on oligarchs, on corporations, and on anybody even remotely close to Putin in any way. There have been all these sanctions to cripple Russia, to make it so that they can't wage war as easily as they would like to. So the Orange God King right now is removing the sanctions on Russia and, in a way, sanctioning Ukraine instead. And he's trying to somehow force both of them to seek peace. But again, it's such an inconsistent policy. One day, Trump sounds like, oh yeah, he's okay with helping Ukraine. The next day, he's trying to extort Ukraine minerals from them. And then the next day, or within the same day, within the same fucking hour, the same sentence, all of a sudden he'll switch and be like, actually, I'm here to help Putin. It's no way to do a foreign policy, but if you lived through the last time this stupid idiot was president, you already know this. This is what people voted for. Do not let them off the hook. 4 years or however long from now, when they're like, I didn't know it was going to be like this. They are lying sacks of shit. All of them. Don't let them off the hook. So Tuesday, that was all Monday. Tuesday, Trump has announced students protesting illegally, whatever that means, will be expelled or the school will lose all federal funding. And that actually has a follow-up. Just this morning, Columbia University lost $400 million of federal funding because of anti-Semitism. Has there been any? I don't know if the students there are anti-Semitic or not. I doubt it. There were a lot of outside agitators there. And quite frankly, the news did a shit job by always presenting things from the police's point of view. So, fuck them. But this is really rich, just coming from the party of MAGA, the party of Nazis, are the ones saying you can't use anti-Semitism. This all goes back to free speech fundamentalism. What the right does is they take your laws and they use it against them. You say there's no racism allowed in America, and white supremacists, the right supremacy and all those assholes will be there and be like, oh, you're racist against white people, can't do that. And because they have enough judges in the system now who share that opinion, especially on the Supreme Court, you have a lot of judges who agree, you know what, you're right. Affirmative action is discriminatory against the powerful white man who's never had a leg up anywhere on the planet. We need to get rid of that so that white people can have a fair shake as the dominant race on the planet. Yeah, no, that's who these fucking idiots are. So that's happening. Apparently it's already begun in Columbia University, so they have lost all their federal funding. Unfortunately, Columbia is completely capitulating. They put out a statement saying we're going to work with the Trump administration to try and fix this and all that other bullshit. So that's just sad. Just further reason for me, I still don't. I think really it's going to suck, but the way forward in this country is not a college education. College, especially under a fascist government, is there strictly to enforce fascism. It's going to be there. You're not going to hear differing opinions. The whole point of going to college is to get away from your bubble. okay? I always hated the idea of religious colleges because that means, first off, you have to be religious to go to a religious college, right? I mean, you're a Christian, you're going to like, I'm not going to a religious college. I'm agnostic atheist, right? Like, I'm not going to one of those. I wouldn't. Only religious people ahead of time would go to them, okay? Catholics go to Notre Dame. It just is, okay? You're either a really big football fan or you're a Catholic. That's just how it is, okay? So I hate it because it allows you to go from your bubble and relatively stay within your bubble the whole time. And I don't think college should be that way. This was the huge complaint about college. You had these conservative parents. They raised their kids to be conservatives just like them, and they raised enough money. They did their job. Like, they worked really hard. They did. They went to work. They saved up all this money to send their kid to college. They send their kid to college. Bye, Johnny. I love you so much. I can't wait to see what wonderful things you do. And then the kid comes home for Thanksgiving or Christmas and is like, holy fuck, you voted for Reagan? What the fuck is wrong with you, mom and dad? And all of a sudden, the parents are like, the school indoctrinated my kids. When the opposite was true. You indoctrinated your kids. Your kids just broke out of it. But they don't want to admit that. So instead, it's the school's fault. The little Johnny came home with a brain. What the fuck, right? You have to understand the indoctrination is a two-way street. It does happen. And it's not even indoctrination for most of us, but we all do it to a degree, right? We want our kids to grow up a little bit like us. Like, I want my kids to be their own, I want my sons to be their own men and go do their own things and forge their own way forward. Like, if one of them told me they were going to follow in my footsteps, I'd be like, please don't. Go do your own thing. Like, I know where my path ends. I don't want that for you. I want you to go do your own thing. Even if you fail, like, fuck it, man. Go try something. Do something different. Surprise me. Surprise yourself. That's me. That's my mindset. That's how I view things. If I owned a huge mega company and my name was on the side of the building, it said Frame, and I was just like Trump, right? In New York, at a huge building, Frame Tower, Frame Company, Frame University. The last thing I would want is for my kids to live in those towers, to go to those schools. I would want my kids to get as far the fuck away from me as possible. And I'm going to advocate that for my kids. If they do go to school abroad, I'm going to be like, get the fuck out of this country. Not because I hate this country. I mean, 10 years from now, who knows? I might love it again. Maybe we fix this. But like, not because I hate the country, but just because it's like, you need to go experience new things. You need to get out. See what's out there. This is how you build empathy. This is how you build social connections with your fellow human beings. This is how, when you turn on the TV and you see this horrible atrocity happening in the middle of the Middle East, and you see these people dying, you don't look at them and be like, well, yeah, they're terrorists. Who gives a shit? No, you look at them and you're like, holy fuck, those are human beings. And you maybe start to think, well, okay, I understand terrorism's bad. Terrorism is bad. I don't agree with it. But what makes someone be a terrorist? Like, what kind of living conditions do you have to live under to think, you know what, strapping a bomb to myself and going into that police station over there is the right answer? Like, what kind of world do you have to live in where that is accepted and the norm and all that? Like, that's where my brain goes, and I want people to understand that. It's not condoning their actions, it's just understanding them, right? Like I've said before, if you had to live under the conditions in Gaza, I guarantee you Hamas would not seem that fucking bad if that was your only option. So, this whole idea of, censoring free speech and, transforming colleges basically into all mini copies of Trump University through, canceling federal funding because, they're anti-Semitic. Well, again, stupid idea here, but isn't anti-Semitism protected speech? I mean, for all of its bad, right? I mean, if you're going to go ahead and tell me you believe in free speech, isn't it protected speech? Right? There's no actions from it. I know it's fucked up, but this is the contradiction within MAGA. This is the contradiction with everything. It's like Marjorie telling Taylor Greene, telling Rashida Tlaib she's anti-Semitic. Like, the fucking space lasers lady, the Jewish space lasers lady, is going to tell a Palestinian that she's anti-Semitic because she said Palestinian lives matter? It's the same thing as white supremacists telling you the Black Lives Matters people are actually the real racists because they only care about black people. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous, and I hate it. I hate it. We're still only on Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. So on Tuesday, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4, surprisingly gender-wise. Amy Coney Barrett joined the liberal women on the court. So this is kind of interesting. Just a weird thing. Who knew? Apparently, ACB likes the environment. But anyway, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4, she did lose, that the EPA cannot regulate how much raw sewage is in your city's water supply. This goes all the way back to 1970s laws regarding clean water and clean air that followed the creation of the EPA by Nixon of all motherfuckers. And basically they were saying, hey, we need to regulate how contaminated people's water is. That's all it was. It was very simple. And it was like, okay, you can have X parts per million of shit in your water. That's all it was, right? They're like, anything higher than this many parts per million of shit in your water, it's considered toxic, and the city shouldn't do it. So the city needs to work to prevent X number of parts per million of shit in that city's water supply. That's all it was. It was a very basic scientific rule. And the Supreme Court ruled that the EPA doesn't have the power to regulate that. Again, this is from the 70s. The laws have been on the books for over 50 years. Precedent. Supreme Court doesn't care about it when it doesn't suit their needs. This is them gutting the EPA, and by the way, it's now totally legal to have shit in your water. Yes. I don't know. I just found it interesting. It's interesting if you follow the Supreme Court and you actually read the briefs, whether you're a lawyer or not. It's kind of like Shakespeare. When you first open Romeo and Juliet, the first act is like, what the fuck are they saying? But by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, oh yeah, no, I totally get it. Like, yeah, Horatio shouldn't have done that. Kind of a deal. The Supreme Court's kind of like that. When you first start to read their briefs and their opinions, it's all fucking Greek. It's gibberish. Like, I don't get it at all. But the longer you do it, and it really doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. But by the fourth or fifth opinion you read, and read the dissents as well, because those can be just as informing. You go through them and you read them. You may not know the legal cases that they're citing, right? They'll cite like, Vasquez versus Florida, and it's like, I've never heard of this person. I don't know this case. And it's from like the 1800s kind of deal. You won't understand that because you're not a lawyer. You're not paid to be. Please don't get into that unless you're really, really free of time. But like, if you read all these things, you won't get that, but you get the general gist of it. And you can start to tell also which justices, wrote the opinions. Like, you can read it and be like, oh yeah, this is Sotomayor right here. Yeah, definitely. Cause she loves this and everything. So it's kind of interesting if you're following now and you pay more attention probably to the conservatives and the liberals. Gorsuch has this weird thing when it comes to Native Americans. He fucking loves them. Like, he loves Native Americans. Fuck black people as far as he's concerned. But, when it comes to Native Americans, he's like, no, we should maybe give them back their fucking land. We should make sure we're not poisoning and killing them still. Like, they should be left the fuck alone to do their thing. Like, he is very much an advocate for Native Americans. It was kind of shocking over the years. You see him one case after another. Like, he seems to be in their back pocket. And it's like, wow, that's just amazing to me. You wouldn't think it from a conservative. Especially, it's so contradictory because, again, you could take two cases, word for word the same thing, but if you change Native American to African American, all of a sudden his entire opinion on it changes, and he's like, nope, fuck them. It's very odd. But one of the things we're starting to see here with Amy Coney Barrett, who of course was the last justice put on the bench by Trump way back when, an interesting thing with her is she cares about the environment. Like, I didn't know about that. Like, I didn't know if she'd I kind of figured as a conservative, part of the bar of going in is, yes, I hate the EPA. But like, whether she likes the EPA or not, she seems okay upholding EPA decisions when there is precedent. So again, the law they just struck down is from the fucking 70s. It's been on the books for a long time. Everyone agrees shit in water is bad. And she's like, yes, the EPA should totally fucking regulate this. This is fine. It's been happening for 50 years. Her whole life, because she's in her 40s. So she's never lived in a world where the EPA did not regulate how much shit can be in your water. So she's probably sitting there going, no, I don't want shit in my water. Plus, you have to consider, because she's so young, she still has kids in the house, and they have to drink that water, you know? So, yeah, it's just one of those interesting quirks. Again, I really do. I got into the Supreme Court basically because it seemed to be the one thing everyone was ignoring. You know, when it came to people, everyone wanted to know about the presidents, and everyone wanted to know about Congress. And in all my high school classes, when they taught those, they were really big on presidents, they were really big on Congress, and they were really big on the wars, and they always seemed to forget the Supreme Court. Supreme Court was his afterthought. It was like, oh yeah, it's that thing with 9 justices on it. But we didn't even cover them during the civil rights. We didn't cover them, you know, Brown v. Board of Education or any of that. Like, none of that got brought up. None of it. None. So maybe I'm just ahead of the curve, because now it's all we can think about, because they're overruling everyone else when it suits them, and they just create precedent out of nowhere. So yeah, that's just an interesting thing. I highly recommend, you know, just get into it. It's all free. It's all up there. You can also pull up the audio of any argument in front of the court, which is also interesting because this court sucks when it comes to hiding their intentions. You can actually go back to the 60s and listen to cases before the court, and you couldn't tell who the conservative or the liberal was on the court back then based on their line of questioning. They would ask a question, and it wouldn't be a leading question, and it wouldn't, like, tip their hand as to how they were thinking. Like, you had no idea. If you were just listening and didn't know who these people were, you were just reading the transcript and the names were blacked out, you're like, I don't know, is this Warren? Is this Chief Justice Warren? Is this the liberal or is this the conservative on the court? Because they were very good at hiding their intentions. This court makes they don't give a fuck, right? I think the conservatives don't give a fuck, and the liberals on the court are like, well, if you don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck. So it's kind of done that. I think if the court were more balanced, they would make more of an attempt to hide their prejudicial opinions. But right now it's very open. But I do enjoy listening to it because sometimes you can tell. You just hear these fantastic prosecutors as well, the lawyers. You can tell, you know, State Attorney General Ken Paxton goes before the Supreme Court all the time for Texas. That guy is a fucking partisan hack if I've ever heard one. And it's very enlightening, and I hope that Texas doesn't do the stupid thing and bring him in because of it. But really, I do. Like, I know it sucks, but if you listen to podcasts, if you have time in your day to, like, put on the earbuds and just do your work and listen to podcasts, seriously consider listening to judicial hearings with the Supreme Court. Also listen to the hearings, you know, anywhere. It really is very interesting. All right, friends and enemies, welcome back to Recovery from Politics podcast. We are only just starting Wednesday, and we're still going through everything. So let's see. Wednesday, the Orange God King of America ends Biden's internet plan to help Elon Musk's Starlink. So yeah, basically, part of the infrastructure bill that Biden was really big on. And again, this is one of those things. It's like, people, I saw it coming a mile away. This is what I was talking about when, if you used to listen to me back in the day about Biden, and the reason that I didn't like him is because he did not affect change. Nothing he did was permanent. And I kept sitting there the whole time, and every bill and every executive order and everything he did, I kept sitting there going, okay, worst case scenario, Trump gets in and he can reverse all of this in a matter of days. And he doesn't need Congress. And that's what I mean by you don't affect change. Affecting change would mean it's locked in so hard that Trump's not going to fucking touch it or can't touch it. But in this case, everything Biden did was horrible. So basically, Biden's infrastructure bill included billions and billions of dollars to go to the 50 states to make sure that their rural Americans had access to Ethernet, ground internet, not satellite, not 5G, but actual fucking cables and wires into your house. You have access to internet. Because once the initial cost of installation is in, it is the cheapest and most reliable form of internet. Okay, if you have satellite TV, you know that if the weather gets bad, you lose it. Okay, so broadband, Ethernet cables, actual physical cables is the most reliable. And again, the billions was made so that we would go ahead, we would dig up the ground, we would put these cables in, we would install them into your home, and then afterwards we would turn it over to somebody like Comcast or who the hell ever. But they wouldn't bill you for that. They would just bill you for the service. They didn't have to, they could provide you internet, but they wouldn't have to up anybody's bill because they're paying these billions of dollars in installation fees basically across the country into places where people normally don't get internet. So this was a huge accomplishment for Biden, and normally it would be okay. However, it's unsurprising that the Orange God King would do this to help Musk. But this is all Joe Biden's fault. All of it. He didn't affect change, but he made the same mistake that Obama did. Okay? So Biden had his infrastructure bill, and he needed, or thought he needed, because he's stupid, he thought he needed Republican support in the House and Senate to pass it. Same with Obama back in the day with the Affordable Care Act. He thought he needed Republican help to pass it, or at least his supermajority wasn't enough, I guess. But anyway, both of them really worked hard to get Republican votes. Neither one of them really got them, but they worked really hard. And one of the ways that they were thinking, this is how we'll get Susan Collins up in Maine to support it, is they allowed the individual states to apply for the funds and determine themselves what's best. So instead of saying, we're going to spend $300 billion on improving everyone's internet, they said, we're going to allot $12 billion to Kentucky, and we're going to allot $10 billion to Alabama, and we're going to give $15 billion to Mississippi. But then they said, but the states have to apply for them. The states can't just take the money and then, blow it on education or their roads, right? They actually have to say, hey, we have contracted these companies to come in here. They're going to do the work. And this is where, they had to show their plan. They said, this is our plan. This is how we plan to spend the money. And they would apply. And then the federal government would release the funds to them for those projects. It's the same thing that happened with Obamacare. It was actually kind of stupid. Me down here in Alabama, I heard somebody complain this is why Obamacare sucked and screwed us all over, made everyone's premiums go up. And I'm like, we're in a state that never accepted the Medicaid funds, you dumb shit. That's an Alabama problem. Your government did this to you. Obamacare's trying to fix it still. The money's still in the books. You just haven't accepted it, you dumb fuck. But you can't do that out in public sometimes. So I had to bite my tongue on that one. But it's basically the same problem that Obamacare has. There's money out there right now, but because Republicans have controlled the legislature or the governor's house the entire time, they've refused the funds. Also, this is a slow process. Because the money isn't immediately given to the states or given to a third-party arbiter to hold on to it until then, they basically said, the federal government will hold this money until the states apply. So if you're a state and you hate Biden, you don't apply, or you slow walk the application. And since the federal government's holding on to it, the federal government, now under the Orange God King, apparently can decide when they just don't want to give it to you. So, again, Biden and Obama both had absolutely no forward thinking when it came to what's the worst case scenario here. Because this also kind of happened with COVID relief. It allows dumb states to opt out or misuse the funding. And, passing programs like this in such a divided country practically begs bad actors to come in and be involved. So it's kind of to me, it's a major problem. I think the thought process was, at least with Obama, I don't know what the fuck was going on with Biden, because it was like, you're ramming your head against the wall. You're never getting through that brick. But at least with Obama, I believe the thought process was, we're going to let the states decide, and then when those southern state governors refuse free money, the people will rise up and vote Democrat. And that didn't happen, because people don't vote that way. And Democrats, I thought, would learn their lesson. But Biden basically redid it all over again. And he was probably sitting there like, haha, if we offer free internet and the southern states don't take it, their people will vote them down. And I'm sitting here like, they won't even know because they don't have internet. You dumb old man. And your shitty, overpaid political advisors who don't understand what you're up against. So, the new thought process is the only person that seems to benefit from this, other than, if you're a politician and you want to keep your people stupid, the only person that benefits from this is Elon Musk, because he is the only one with Starlink, which is a massive satellite internet provider that he controls. Right now, he has shut off access to Starlink to Ukraine. Why? Because he fucking can. Now, I don't like that. But here's the thing. If it's ground cables and Comcast is like, fuck you, we're not going to give you Fox News anymore, or MSNBC, or whatever your cable channel is, or they decide we're going to throttle your internet over here because we don't want you going to that site. Guess what? You can fire Comcast and you can go get a different provider. You can't do that with Starlink. Elon Musk controls it all. And if he wants to flip the switch and turn your internet off or throttle traffic to a website that says he's stupid, you're screwed. You have no control over it. So this only helps fascism. This only helps corporations. And it only helps, in this case, one very specific billionaire South African. And so it's just a horrible thing to me. This is a big thing that's going under the radar right now that really everyone should be way more pissed off about. Anyway, later on Wednesday, the Supreme Court did rule against the Orange God King regarding USAID payments. So the Supreme Court basically ruled, hey, these contracts were guaranteed. Everyone signed on the bottom line. The work is being done as it's supposed to. You can't just cancel them because, shits and giggles. This is a very low bar for the Supreme Court. So I wouldn't woohoo, we won. No. Also, there's no evidence as of yet that the Trump administration has actually agreed to release the funds. Because the Supreme Court can't force the president to do anything he doesn't want to. Supreme Court can't actually force anyone to do anything they don't want to. If the Supreme Court says, you, sheriff there, you must enforce the law in this way, the sheriff can just say no. This whole system is on the honor system. The whole thing is based on the Supreme Court makes a ruling and then everyone goes along with it because that's how it's supposed to be done. So even in cases like this where the Supreme Court rules in a favorable way to the rest of the world and us, they can't force Trump to do it. And right now there's no evidence that Trump is complying. He's just not making a big show of it. And the Democrats are not taking him to court to compel him. There should be, something in court. Contempt of court. That's it. Sorry. Democrats should be suing, trying to bring up contempt of court charges to Trump to try to this should be a story. Hey, look, we're Democrats. We're actually fucking doing something. But they're not. So that's kind of a problem. But there's no evidence so far that he's releasing any payments. Secondly, even if he did release payments, I would be very curious if he does a blanket, all payments are released, or if instead he holds on to them and says, well, I'm going to pick and choose. And then he'll release to the press, hey, look, president releases USAID payments. And then the press just, oh, thank you, almighty Orange God King. And they gargle his nuts and they print in the paper, look, Trump did what the Supreme Court said with absolutely no analysis whatsoever, because that's the dystopian hell we live in. So yeah. Anyway, Thursday. Wednesday night, the Orange God King went ahead and gave a joint session of Congress to Congress. This was not a State of the Union speech. An incoming president is not required to give a State of the Union speech in his first year. There's no point to. He wasn't the one running the country for the last year. Why would he? Traditionally, the only time you would kind of maybe consider it a State of the Union is if it's an incumbent president. So Obama in his second term, if he wanted to, right after his inauguration, a month or two later, do a State of the Union, they would go ahead and call it a State of the Union. I still don't know if it officially is. I don't know the rules about that. But I do know it was a joint session of Congress that absolutely, totally failed on all levels. It was just one lie after another. After another. I read the transcript. I refuse to watch the bullshit because I hate the pageantry of it all. But I read the transcript. Not one single fucking thing Donald Trump said during the entire speech was accurate or truthful at all. Not one. I challenge you to find a single sentence in there that you're like, I believe this 100% with my soul. It's not. It's not. And the Democrats were pretty much no-shows, which is very sad. I didn't want them to boycott because I think the Republicans, all they would do is get seat fillers or... So many years ago, I was in a movie. I was just an extra, nothing major, but I was in a movie, and it was a basketball movie, and I was a fan in the basketball stands. That was it, right? That was my job. And it was kind of interesting. Before they shot a single thing, there were several people, I think it was the assistant director, and he was telling us all where to sit and where to stand. This was before CGI really took off. So, and especially not for this. This was not, it was a kind of made for TV movie, so it wasn't a high budget thing by any stretch. So they definitely didn't have the money back in the 90s. This was the 90s. Back in the 90s to hire a bunch of computer tech whizzes to CGI a fake audience. So they actually had to use this. Problem was there wasn't enough of us, or maybe there wasn't enough of a budget to hire enough of us to fill the stadium. Again, or basketball court. So what they did was this person went around and he goes around and he tells you all where to sit. He's like, this group here, yes. And they actually measure how far away you are from each other so that with the right camera angle, it looks like, oh, the bleachers are full. That is a science that has been going around Hollywood for many years, I find out. That's what they do. Now, these days, because of CGI and everything else, they don't need to be as accurate with that. They still do that because you want to mix. You don't want all of the audience to be CGI. You want a good portion of them to be real human beings, and then you fill in the gaps with CGI in between. So that way it's not too uncanny valley or anything like that. But it's still a science used today, and Hollywood's been using it for decades. So anytime you see a scene, especially pre-computers, where they actually show the crowds in the stands, that was orchestrated and angled at such a way, and blocked and angled at such a way that it's an illusion. It's fake. So I was worried that if the Democrats tried to boycott this thing, the Republicans, if they couldn't do seat fillers, because again, I don't know the rules of how you fill Congress, can you just fill it with anyone, or do they have to actually be Congress members, right? I don't know the rules on that. So if they couldn't just get seat fillers, they could go ahead and angle themselves in such a way so that it looks full. And yeah, sure, you'd have some eagle-eyed people like myself or the nerds and MSNBC who would focus in on all the empty seats and be like, there's one, there's one, there's one. But for the general public, when C-SPAN is just panning over, they wouldn't see it. And that's intentional. So I didn't want them to boycott and just not show up. I was like, then it'll just be a MAGA rally. Don't want that. So my next best thing, I thought, some people were like, you should sit there in silence. And I was like, I don't think that's going to do anything. Not really. You're still letting Trump say and do whatever he wants. I thought the answer, and I still think the answer is to be as disruptive as humanly possible. Okay? When he comes in, yeah, don't stand when he walks into the chamber. Don't applaud. Do not give reverence to the fucking office. Okay? The founding fathers would be very, very ashamed and pissed off at all of us with this reverence for the office, this respect for the office. No, fuck you. He's a man. Period. No different than the rest of us. That was the point of the American experiment. So, no, fuck you, Democrats. Sit your ass down. Don't applaud. No decorum whatsoever. When he gets up, what I wanted was for them to jeer and boo him the entire fucking time. Do not let him get a word in edgewise. Representative Al Green was the only one who stood up and fucking yelled at his ass the whole time and refused to sit down and stop yelling, to the point that the Speaker of the House had to take the insane step of having the Sergeant at Arms escort him out. Well, guess what that did? Created 5 minutes of Trump not speaking. And then what should have happened was the next Democrat stands up and does the same fucking thing the second Trump tries to speak. Yell, swear at him, do whatever, refuse to listen till the Sergeant of Arms escorts him out. And then when that's done, the next one and the next one. There are over 200 of these sons of bitches. Drag it on all fucking night. All night. Until it's 3 a.m. and Trump is tired because he's been standing the whole fucking time. And Speaker Johnson's, frustrated as all hell and looking pissed off. And everyone in the audience is tired and bored. And they're just like, God damn it, would this just fucking end? And no one at home, everyone's like, man, the Democrats aren't going to stop. I'll just turn this shit off and see what happens in the morning. And cut it off. Ratings drop. Democrats get their point across, Sergeant of Arms takes them all out, and you have party unity. Holy fuck, there's an idea. That's what should have happened. Instead, Representative Al Green was the only one, and Thursday morning, the House voted to censure him, because as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, they're very sensitive, and House Republicans, they got their feelings hurt. And the only way that they know how to respond is by censuring a member of Congress. And she was correct. And I don't mind that part. That's expected at this point. That's what Republicans do, right? Oh, my feelings were hurt. I'm such a poor, sad little snowflake MAGA idiot. So I'm going to censure you. Which is not legally binding in any case. Except 10 fucking Democratic quislings voted to go along with it, including my least favorite of the bunch from Florida, Moskowitz. Fuck that quisling. I swear to God, I don't understand it. Okay, we all knew this censure was... Cat. We all knew this censure was bad faith, just like their censure of Rashida Tlaib was bad faith, just like the removal of Ilhan Omar from committees was bad faith. Like, the Republicans don't do anything in good faith. Why the fuck would you go along with it in that case? Then, of course, you had Fetterman, my now least favorite senator in the world, and seriously, could the stroke just finish its fucking job at this point with him? Fetterman went ahead and said he thought his party was childish and unprofessional, and I'm like, motherfucker, you wear sweats to the office. Shut the fuck up. Yeah. I know, Fetterman makes me mad. He does. Shy and Indy say I should calm down on Fetterman for now. He gets me a little animated. Sure. So, we're still on Thursday. Trump also said he was going to revoke student visas who post pro-Hamas social media posts. That was it, pro-Hamas. Not anti-Semitic, not anti-Israel, just pro-Hamas. Now, all I would caution is one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And while I do not agree with the tactics used by some of these groups, if you pay attention to how they are forced at gunpoint to live in the world's largest open-air prison, it's hard to argue that they remain passive. Once again, your average American forced to live how they do would be strapping bombs to their chests and killing as many of their prison guards as possible. This isn't hypothetical. This is just fact. Okay? We have people right now in this country who say, I hope the government tries to take my guns. I'd fuck them up. And that's just over a firearm. If you tried to tell them your kid is not allowed food or water today, how would they react? They're already overreacting to bullshit that's never happened. Imagine if it really did. And not the stuff they were thinking about, but stuff that actually fucking matters. You don't get a house. You don't get food. You don't get water. That's denied to you because we say so. Not because you didn't work hard, not because you anything. We just decide you are lesser. So you don't deserve basic human dignity or items or survival. You just get to sit here and live in filth and disease and starvation and dehydration. You get to live in all that. You get to watch your kids be nothing but skin and bones. Okay? You don't get to watch on TV during the commercial of that poor African child who can't eat. That's your kid now. And you're almost as skinny as he is. But, again, empathy. It's that one thing, like, nobody gets. Nobody wants to put themselves in that. So they wrap it all up in their brains and their feelings, and they're like, no, they must be there because they did something wrong. They must be there because they're not hard workers, like me. Because I made it, and I'm a hard worker, and I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm okay. So that's what's wrong. They're not good people like me, and they don't work hard like me, and that's why they're treated that way. It's not because they just happen to be born in a country where they're considered non-human. And also, if you take it that far, you start to wonder, what did my country do to help this? Because that's a scary fucking thought. So I wasn't sure what date this was. It was one of those stories I just found. The Federal Reserve of Crypto. Orange God King of America has announced his plans to pick 5 random cryptocurrencies. Well, not random. I think Bitcoin's one of them. I don't know the other one. And add them to the Federal Reserve, which means adding them to the budget and debt ceiling. And if it crashes, it brings us all the way down with it. It's another market to have anxiety about. It's also a bit of a scam. So Trump announced his tariffs one day, and then the next day he announced that he's going to use the federal government to invest heavily into crypto. Not regulate it, invest in it. He's just going to throw money at it. And this is a person who created, and his wife did too, their own crypto coins. You can go out and buy a Melania coin right now. You can buy a Trump coin. It's digital, it's fake, whatever. But you can do that right now. And it will make them money if you do that. And they created these before he took office. They're still out there. You can still buy them. And he announces tariffs that crash the stock market. And that the Federal Reserve is going to invest in crypto roughly on the same day. Scales. One goes up, the other goes down. Who profits from this? Not the average American person. You are tying a highly volatile asset, if you can call it that, to our budget, our deficit. That doesn't help the government. It doesn't help us. It doesn't even help big business. It helps a very, very, very select few individuals. That's it. It's a scam. It's all a fucking grift. That's all it is. So, anybody who thinks this is, some kind of 4D chess or something is like, I don't think Trump wants to destroy the United States. I think he's just doing what he needs to enrich himself. That's all it is. So I kind of covered things that have happened over the course of the week, and nothing really got better on Friday. It was more of all that I talked about, and it got worse, of course. I mentioned that this morning the big headline is Colombia lost its funding. So I have this friend. I met her going to a protest with another friend who I met at the Democratic Party meetings I've been going to. And we're all of the same mind. We are all almost unanimously as equally angry at Democrats as we are Republicans, right? We're very, very like-minded. Just degrees of separation here and there. But anyway, this friend of mine, she believes very much that she can reach some MAGA and bring them over. And I told her, I was like, I used to think that. I did. And I mentioned before, I thought it because the alternative is frightening. The alternative is they got to go away, right? Like, historically, fascists have not been beaten at the ballot box. Fascists don't lose a really bad election and slunk away, right? So you kind of hope, just on a human level, that you can reach them. Because the alternative, I mean, the Nazis didn't go away. We killed a lot of them, right? And you look at the situation here in the United States. After the Civil War, we did kill a lot of them. They killed a lot of us. But at the end of it, the climax of the war was Grant accepting Lee's surrender and then allowing Lee's army to go home. We didn't get rid of them. So they went home, and they immediately, when they got the chance, established Jim Crow, another version of oppression. And they were still fascists in the South, but by a different name. And you saw that. And I think, historically looking back, you could say, okay, so we didn't get rid of the fascists last time. They just morphed, and now they're the current modern Republican Party after, some transition periods, of course. But that was the roots of where we currently are, is we didn't get rid of our fascists. They stuck around. They worked within our system. They got in our bloodstream. They stuck, right? We thought we amputated the cancer, but we didn't. We didn't get all of it. And we didn't do anything about it afterwards. We kind of put blinders on, and we said, no, we dealt with that issue. It's gone now. We don't need to go back to the doctor. We don't need to do more x-rays. We don't need to do more tests. It's gone. We killed it. It's gone. It's fucking gone. Just like a cancer patient who's like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to look. I'll ignore the lump. And for decades, generations, we ignored what was going on down here in the South. We ignored the oppression. We ignored the hate. We whitewashed Tulsa Massacre from history, right? Most of us didn't hear about it until a fucking HBO comic book show told us about it. For fuck's sake. We have whitewashed even our heroes. Martin Luther King Jr. We only hear about the peaceful part. We don't hear about the socialist part. We don't hear about his thoughts on the Vietnam War. We don't hear so much how he was a tactical genius when it came to manipulating the media. We didn't hear about how he thought moderate white people were just as much an enemy as the racists. In fact, he preferred the racists because at least he knew who they were. But he's like, the moderate white man, fuck, can't stand him. Because you really don't know, are they on my side or not until the chips are down. And more often than not, he found out they were not. But you don't hear about that part. You only hear about peaceful, non-violent. Oh no, his protests were non-violent. That's why they were okay. And Malcolm X has been villainized over the years. Oh, he was the violent one. He was the evil one. He was the racist one. And they really focus on the period of his life where, yeah, even he admits he was in a cult. He got caught up in it all. He was so busy with his own reformation and with the veil of the world being lifted from his eyes that he didn't see that too was also part of the lie. He died acknowledging, his faith was for everyone, not just, one. But we don't focus on that. We don't. We don't focus on how our own government tried to kill, demean, destroy, even try to convince them to commit suicide. We don't talk about the government's role in breaking up various different groups over the years that wanted nothing more than community building and peace because they were helping minority communities. And if they suddenly had self-sufficiency, they wouldn't be on welfare anymore. They wouldn't be controlled by the state. There is a small grain of truth to the right-wing lie when they say that, oh, you know, when you create welfare, you create a dependency. They're not 100% wrong with that. The problem is they want to control who the dependent are. They do want minority communities dependent on that government assistance because they can control them with it. It's the same way, like, why doesn't universal health care be a real thing here? Why isn't Medicare for all a real thing? The majority of the country wants it. Why don't politicians do it? Well, because if you had universal health care, your employer wouldn't be able to hold that over your head. You might think, oh, I can go find work for better pay somewhere, and I don't have to worry about my wife's surgery coming up. Or I don't have to worry about my son's dental work. So, you know, they go over this, and we think about it. We think about all the fascism that has happened around the world, and the only successful purges of it have unfortunately not been at the ballot box. And that is absolutely terrifying to think about. How much blood would have to run in the streets for the United States to be free of MAGA? Free of fascism. Free of Christian nationalism. That is a frightening thought, because I do believe most of these people are not nefarious, evil people. Like, if you took them away from their church and didn't talk about politics, if you just sat next to them during a basketball game or a football game, and you both rooted for the same team, and politics and religion and that bullshit, it never came up, you would think to yourself, Jeff's a good guy. He's got a good family there. Treats him nice. Took him to ice cream afterwards. Nice guy. Works hard. I could be friends with him. So I know for a fact that most of these people are not evil. But I don't know how the fuck to reach them. So the idea of purging is absolutely terrifying to me. I don't want to fucking do that. I don't know anyone who does. I would love this podcast to be about fucking movies. I love movies. I love the Seahawks. Let's talk about that, but I can't. I'm not doing this because the Democrats are winning. Or they're even providing me with the basic stuff that the polls show we all want. They are completely ineffectual and fucking stupid right now. You can't yell fascism for 4 years and then conduct a peaceful transfer of power. You can't tell me the Supreme Court is corrupt as fuck for 4 years and then do absolutely nothing about it. So, yeah, I'm doing this instead, and I don't like it. I don't want to do this. But I have no choice in the matter. I feel compelled to do this. And my friend, she is compelled to try to find a way to reach these people. And I'll just say this. Beware of ex-MAGA. Just, okay? Assume for a moment they were completely and totally ignorant of Project 2025. It's possible, right? If they eat a steady diet of Fox News and Newsmax and Facebook, they maybe never heard about it. Or they heard about it, but it was a huge thing the Democrats are blowing out of proportion. But they obviously didn't read it. I think it was like 900 pages long or some bullshit. They didn't read it. Who has time for this? So they're totally ignorant of it, willfully ignorant, because these people did hear about it. I think everyone heard about it, but none of them were curious enough to pick up their smartphone and look it up. So willfully ignorant, practically criminally so, criminally negligent, in my view. But for sake of argument right now, let's allow the assumption. So right now, there are a lot of these Trump voters who are absolutely against everything Elon Musk is doing. You see them in the few town halls that have happened. You'll see these people. I voted for Trump, and I know he loves this country, but I just don't understand what's going on with this Elon Musk and why he's doing what he's doing. It's hurting veterans, and I know that Trump loves veterans. I voted for him because he loves veterans. And what are you doing, Mr. Congressman? Are you doing anything to stop this man, this Elon Musk, from doing what he's doing? Because he's hurting veterans, and I know the president, he doesn't do that. He loves veterans. Okay, we're talking about that idiot. But you see him in these town halls, and they're all filled with angry Trump voters. And they're against it. Okay, sure, whatever. But what did they vote for? Okay. Because even though Trump distanced himself from Project 2025, what didn't he distance himself from? Right? What did he say repeatedly, over and over again, on Fox News, on Newsmax, at his rallies, over and over and over again? He kept saying, this is me, this is what I'm going to do. He said he was in favor of mass deportations, and he included the building of camps. He said that repeatedly. Mass deportations. We'll build camps to put them in. His words, multiple times. You couldn't run away from it. I don't care how stupid of a Trump voter you were. You knew if there was one thing to know about Donald Trump, he was going to fucking hurt immigrants. Mass deportation, family separation, building of camps. He talked about it. He bragged about it. He opened all his rallies with it. You knew that one thing. What else did he tell you? He ran on tariffs. I'm going to put tariffs on China. I'm going to put tariffs on Mexico. And I'm going to put tariffs on Canada. Lots of them. Did he say, well, I'm going to put tariffs on, specifically on Canadian lumber, and I'm going to put tariffs on Mexican tequila because I think tequila's bad, and alcohol, and you really got to... No. Blanket fucking tariffs. Huge numbers. Not, I'm going to put a 2% tariff over here so that, their car is equal pricing to our car. And that way, if the American consumer wants to choose between the two, it's not a price issue. It's how do they feel about the quality. And that way, meritocracy, right? You build the better car, you sell the better car. End of discussion. That's how my tariffs are going to work. No. Blanket fucking huge numbers. 25%, 50%. One point he said 200% tariffs on China. Not on specific goods. Every fucking thing. 200%. He said that repeatedly, constantly, on his rallies, on Fox News, on Newsmax, everywhere he could. One-on-one interviews with Brett Baer and fucking Sean Hannity. Over and over again, he said that. So if you didn't know anything about Trump, goddammit, you knew. He is fucking anti-immigrant to a hard degree, and he is going to throw massive tariffs on our enemies and allies alike. You knew that. What else did he tell you? And he never shied away from. He told Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, he could, quote, do whatever he likes, end quote, with Gaza, with the Palestinian people. He told him that. So as a voter, you had to be okay with someone, your president, telling another world leader, oh, those people, you can do whatever you want with them. Whatever you want. What do you think that means? If I wrote a story, or if I told you, hey man, there's this horror movie, right? And in it, there's this girl and she's locked in a room. And the guy who's holding her captive, he brings in another guy, a 16-year-old boy. Kind of boy you don't really want. He's a bully at school. And he goes, hey, I got this girl in here. You can do whatever you want to her. Where would your brain go? Would you say that's a movie I want to watch? Would you say, wow, I can't wait to see that horror movie. What's that like? Whatever you want. Think of it in the most menacing, evil fucking way possible. Hey, you see that person over there? You can do whatever you want to them. Anything at all. No rules. You can just go. What kind of movie is that? What kind of movie is that you want to watch? But we're talking about an entire race of people. Millions of people. Men, women, children. Not every single one of them is a terrorist. Even if you believed, oh, well, they shouldn't have elected Hamas. Even if you buy that. We didn't all elect Trump. Would you be okay if another country invades America and they treated every single one of us like it was our fault? Like we did it? Like we personally signed a bill saying, yes, I elected Trump and he can do whatever he wants. You take ownership for it. Would you be okay with that? Because there are people who have lived and died in the time since the last election in Gaza. They've lived their whole lives under Hamas. They never voted for them. Yet they're being punished as if they had something to do with it. And our president told the person holding them captive, hey, that guy with the 2 daughters who were kindergarten age, yeah, that guy. He's only 17. He wasn't even alive the last time there were elections. He didn't vote for Hamas. And he didn't do anything. He's just trying to raise his daughters. Him and his daughters, you can do whatever you want to them. Anything at all. No rules. That's what Trump just told Bibi Netanyahu. He told him all summer long when he was running, I'd let him do whatever he wants. That's what that means. That's what that means. That's what your president told another world leader. That's who they voted for. He said that multiple times. Never ran away from it. Right? Another thing he said, he would end the Russian war against Ukraine on day 1. So if you didn't know anything about Trump at all, if you didn't, you knew he hates immigrants. He says anything you want to do against Palestinians is fine by him, and he says he's going to put tariffs on our enemies and allies alike. And by the way, that war against Ukraine is going to be done on day 1. And he's so good at it, he's going to keep it a trade secret until he's in office. Well, he's in office now. Been way more than 1 day. He promised, he said he would go heavy on anti-trans laws and propaganda. He said anti-trans people were sick in the head. He said the left wants to make your kids change their gender. He says your kid will go to school one day as a boy and come back as a girl. It'll all happen without your consent or permission, and the school nurse can somehow do this. My school nurse was scared to give us Tylenol if I had a headache. But whatever, they're gonna do surgeries now. That's what your kid said. That's what your president said. That's who they voted for. That's what he said. He said that every chance he got. He also said he would nominate RFK Jr. to Health and Human Services. He did. He said that. He said RFK Jr., this guy who believes vaccines cause autism, this guy who thinks measles is totally fine and that all you need is some good food, some vitamins. That is actually something RFK Jr. said, is that all you need are some vitamins to fight measles. You just need your vitamins. That's who he nominated. He said he was going to nominate that person, that lunatic, to Health and Human Services. That's what he said multiple times. And then he did it. But that's not why they're showing up at the town halls. He said he would end DEI entirely, saying any and all failures America has goes back to giving black people and minorities, including straight white women, an equal footing with their white men counterparts. He said he was going to get rid of DEI. Again, very incurious people never bothered to look up what that was. They never bothered to look up what CRT was. They never bothered to look up any of it. They were spoon-fed. DEI bad, means racist against white people. No, it means racist against white men. Also, it's not racism. It's leveling the playing field. White men have no problem walking into any door in this country. DEI never even said you have to hire a black person. They just said, just fucking interview one or two. Jesus. But he said he was going to get rid of that on day one. And he said he was going to do it in the military. And he said he was going to do it within government. He said, if it's DEI and it's in the government, your ass is fired. So you knew you had a joint chief of staff who headed the Joint Chiefs, and he was black. You knew he was gone. The Coast Guard had its first woman, commandant in charge of it ever on the Joint Chiefs. She was fired. Who remains now? All straight white men. He said he was going to do that. He said he was. And white women, surprisingly, you are idiots if you didn't know that was coming, and you still voted for this guy. At every opportunity to say a bad thing about Vladimir Putin, because they would try to goad him into it. On the debate stage, Biden, Harris, everyone who debated him, say something bad about him. Anything. Brett Baer, Sean Hannity, anytime he did a one-on-one interview with them, they would even ask him, is there anything Putin is doing wrong? Won't do it. Not a single fucking thing that guy has done has been bad, according to Trump. That's not suspect to you at all? Fuck. He has made racist remarks against China. For fuck's sake. Never ran away from any of that. Doubled down on it every chance he got. Spoke at length about a golfer's dick size during a rally. That's what they voted for. And he said he would military strike into Mexico and violate that country's sovereignty if he wanted to. Just because he can. And this is all the shit that just pops off my head. I could do actual internet searches for all the things he said on the campaign trail, but that would be about 3 hours long and the only thing I get out today. So if you neglect Project 2025 and you completely memory hold all the horrible shit he did the first time around, these were all the things he did not shy away from during his campaign for president in 2024. This is all the new shit. That's what these people voted for. Those are the things the Orange God King of America was okay endorsing. So I have to ask, are these potential future ex-MAGA voters good people just because they don't like what Elon Musk is doing? Because they voted in favor of all the other shit. And I gotta ask this too. Even if they come around and vote Democrat in 2028, does that change anything? Especially if the Democrat is running on the exact same platforms as Kamala Harris, but now it's Gavin Newsom. If he's putting him forward. Did they change? Or did the situation change? So, a little personal here. I really wish everyone could be an addict at some point in their lives. Because we alcoholics know our alcoholism did not change. The situation did. It was tenable until it was not. Maybe your spouse threatened to leave. Maybe you woke up from a blackout in the ER with a broken arm. I've heard that story. Maybe the doc tells you some really bad news. Your liver, you got psoriasis. Or cirrhosis. Excuse me. Pardon if I screwed that up. Maybe you get a DUI and the judge is like, whatever. It was all sustainable until it wasn't. I didn't change. The situation did. At the beginning of every alcoholic's journey is a few friendly nights with a couple drinks and some friends. But I guarantee you, every alcoholic in that room would love nothing more than to know how to drink without going too far. Every one of us would love to know that secret because we didn't change. We're alcoholics for the rest of our lives. We always were. We always will be. The situation changed. So these MAGA, they were always MAGA. I don't believe they changed. Okay? All these current Republicans you see who are lamenting the good old days, like, oh, so great under Reagan. It wasn't. But whatever, let's give them their dream. It was so great under Reagan. Something changed. No. The people that were MAGA, that are MAGA, they've always been MAGA. And they always will be MAGA. A Nazi is a Nazi for the rest of their lives. They didn't stop being a Nazi. They stopped being a Nazi in public. They did not change. The situation did. And even if they vote Democratic every year from now until they die, they'll still be die-hard MAGA. It'll be sitting there, waiting for just the right messenger with just the right message. And they will be right back at the sauce. Did they change? Or did the situation become untenable? I love my friend. She's great. She's awesome. I wish I could hang out more with her, but schedules and everything. It's a pain in the ass. I wish I could, but this will probably break her heart. I don't believe these people are reachable. They are sick, just like I am. Just like a lot of people I know are. We're going to be sick for the rest of our lives. And if the situation changes, the situation changes, but we will not. Okay? I am an alcoholic. I will be one until my death. I currently, knock on wood, am not drinking because I am going to work and it is a very demanding schedule and I want to work. And I have a wife and I have 2 young boys and I want to be there for them. I want to be the healthiest version I am for them. I want to be alert and aware for them. I want to live and grow old with my wife. I want to see who my kids grow up to be. I want to see the men they are. So I don't drink. The situation changed. I didn't. And if the situation changes tomorrow, if for some reason I no longer have to work, if for some reason my wife and kids are no longer around, If I don't have a reason not to drink, I will drink. I will do it. Because that's who I am. These MAGA have always been MAGA. You may have been friends with them before, but that's because the situation was different. It used to be bad to do what they're doing. People would look down on them for doing what they're doing. We look down on them now for doing what they're doing, but they have a community now. It's different. If that community goes away, they'll just be like every other German Nazi who survived World War II. They'll be quiet. They'll be still. They won't fly the flag. They won't talk about politics at all. There'll be that person at the Thanksgiving table who's like, I don't like politics. I don't like talking about it. Why won't they like talking about it? Because they'll know the rest of the table would turn on them. Stop loving them. Stop caring about them. But if suddenly that table went away and they didn't have to anymore, or maybe if more people at the table agreed with them, oh, they'd talk some politics. They'd bring it up. A lot. The situation will change. They won't. I don't know how to fix it. I really don't. I look at American history and I see the Civil War that happened, and all I see was a huge mistake at the end. Huge mistake. We had our chance. Could have ended it right there. But somebody decided to take pity on them, to believe they could be better humans. But really all they did was let them go home, sulk for a little bit, and wait, pass down some good old truths to their kids and their grandkids. And those kids and grandkids grew up, and they were the same. They remembered. They loved their granddad, who fought in the Civil War against the North. They were proud of that heritage. And they don't like how the rest of the world looks down on them for believing what they believe, that they should be the ones looking down on the rest of the world. And they just sat, and they just waited, and they passed down this bullshit tradition and way of thinking for decades, generations, until the right man with the right message showed up. And he told them what they wanted to hear, and they believed him. And now it's okay. Now they can be who they really were the whole time. Mask off. This is who they are. This is who they've always been. This is who they always will be. I wish there was a way around it. You know, I'm that crazy person who watches January 6th videos and I'm like, why didn't the cop shoot them? Every one of them. The cop should have unfucking loaded their guns on all of them. I get why they didn't. Like, you're in the moment, right? Like, I don't blame them. You know? I get it. Per their own first-hand accounts, they were debating whether or not they even had enough ammo or what would happen if they started shooting and then, you know, they didn't know if any of them had guns. And they were like, if we start shooting, they start shooting, and then it's a bloodbath. Like, no, I get the calculation. I do. I'm not blaming any of the officers in the Capitol for making the decision. I'm just sitting here saying, I don't think it would be that bad if they made a different one. Maybe we'd be in a better place. Maybe the country wouldn't have united around Trump afterwards so quickly. Maybe the Republican Party, if there was a little more blood on their hands, would have been like, holy fuck. Yeah, no, we can't do this anymore. Maybe if there was a little more blood in the Capitol building that day, Merrick Garland wouldn't have sat on his ass for 2 years. You know? Maybe there would have been just a hair more urgency to the situation. But instead, you know, one rioter, several cops, some by suicide. That's easy to sweep under the rug, right? One death out of that entire thing. I mean, from actual violence, from like, yeah, one rioter dead. That was inevitable, right? I mean, hell, if that was Black Lives Matter protesting in the Capitol like that with the rioting, that would have been an achievement, right? Like, because we all know how cops are when it comes to BLM. So that would have been like, if you told me BLM stormed the Capitol and only one of them got shot and killed, I'd been like, holy fuck. Wow, that was some goddamn restraint. So I don't know what the right answer is. I really don't. I hope we can find a way past this. I hope there is such a thing as an election so damned destructive to MAGA. Like, psyche-wise, just like breaks their spirit so fucking hard that they are forced to be ashamed of it again and disappear. And maybe we break the cycle and it doesn't get passed down to their kids over and over and over again. And 50 years from now, we're fighting the same fucking stupid war with these backward-ass country fucks. I hope so hard it breaks and we don't have to do this. But the problem is, I'm sitting here, I'm talking into a microphone, I'm saying horrible shit that might get me banned or, you know, whatever. And I'm not seeing anybody else do anything. And by everybody else, I mean like the grander, like Hakeem Jeffries, for fuck's sake, gave an interview in sweats. He wasn't wearing a suit. You know, he's given an interview talking about Al Green and how that was unacceptable. He's not acting because he's too busy doing a book tour. I see Chuck Schumer and it being leaked that, their secret, top secret plan of how to beat MAGA is to not do anything, and they believe that if they give the fascists enough rope, they'll hang themselves. And I don't hear Obama, and I don't hear Biden, and I don't hear Harris. Harris is gearing up for a fucking run in California. She's going to try to take over for Newsom. And I see the potential presidential frontrunner, Gavin Newsom, you know, politicizing, policing homelessness, tearing up homeless camps, doing interviews with white supremacy asshole Charlie Kirk, talking about anti-trans bills, and not in their bad way. None of our leaders are fighting for us, so I'm just sitting here. This is my contribution to society. I can't do anything about it. I'm hoping for a peaceful resolution. I'm hoping we aren't rushing into something stupid, because I know it's not going to end the way you want. No war in the history of modern warfare has gone the way you want. Not one. There is no such thing as a general or admiral who can plan the perfect tactic, and it happens throughout the course of a war. There are too many variables. Too many unknowns. We make fun of Donald Rumsfeld for the whole there are known knowns and known unknowns and then there's unknown unknowns and how crazy that statement is. But it's fucking true. When it comes to war, you don't know what you don't know. And right now you've got these crazy assholes thinking, oh yeah, let's invade Mexico or Canada, like it's gonna be the easiest fucking thing in the world. And it's mind-blowing to me because I'm like, just 2 years ago, the entire intelligence community, globally, worldwide, thought Ukraine would fall in 72 hours to Russia. Our intelligence community told Joe Biden that. Russia, the KGB, the Kremlin told Putin 72 hours. NATO, Britain, France, Germany, all their intelligence agencies all said the same fucking thing. Everybody. It was universal. It was a fucking known. Ukraine will fall in 72 hours. Here we are 2 years later. And our dipshit of a president is threatening the victim in the war for not wanting peace hard enough. So I could see people. I could. I really hope I'm wrong. I really, really do, because I'm a pessimist by nature when it comes to this shit. I don't see the good in people. I don't. I rarely do. My friend, she does. God bless her for it. I'm not even religious, but seriously, Zeus bless you. You know? I hope so hard, because I have kids. I don't want them growing up in this shit. This is bad enough. I don't need to add violence to it. I don't need to add instability and craziness to it. It's bad enough as it is. Because we can't predict the future. You can't predict a war any more than you can predict what your kids are going to do tomorrow. My kids are going to grow up in this country. I would rather it not be bathed in blood when they do so. And I can't predict what kind of men they would grow up to be in that environment. Think about it yourself. If you have young kids, or you just have kids. Shit, your kids are my age. I'm a kid, right? I have parents. Wouldn't you worry about your kid in that situation? Or your grandkids? Not just what they would do, what they would see. And what would happen to their... What if you told your kid, hey, when I was a little boy, I was in a country and there was a war and I had a friend. And my friend died because a drone struck his house and killed him. And he was my only friend. And I lost my friend that way. That's fucking devastating, right? That's the real world for a lot of this planet. It could happen here. It could. And I don't think people understand that. And so we really do. We need the realistic pessimism of me in this world. We need people like me to be like, hey, you know, we need to plan for the worst case. But we need people like my friend to be as optimistic as possible and be like, God damn it, Kyle, we can't quit. We have to try to find peace. Because there are good people. Like I said, there are people who if you didn't know, you could sit next to at a basketball game or a football game, and you could both root for the same team. And you could have a beer with them, and you could hang out with them. And as long as politics and bullshit never come up, you could be friends with them. And you would think they are good people. Those are the kinds of people who would be hurt. Those are the kinds of people who could die in this. I need to find the humanity in reaching out to these people and thinking, God damn it, would you please meet me halfway? But I'm an addict. And I honestly don't believe people can change. I think the situation does, and you adapt to it. But I didn't change. Okay. So that's our show for this week. It's definitely going to be a long one. I'm looking at well over an hour and a half here. So we will see how that works. If you guys like it, let me know. If you hate it, let me know. If you think I'm an asshole, let me know. If you want to report me and say that I'm inciting violence and all that good stuff, my name is Kyle Frame. I do live in Alabama. That's as far as that's going. My email is recoveryfrompolitics@gmail.com. You can find me on Blue Sky. I do have a page on Facebook, although I'm not there anymore, but you know, it will tell you where I am the rest of the time. And yeah, that's it. Please be safe. Do try to get some empathy. Read a book or two, not like a history book, like a novel. Like seriously, just sit down and read for a bit quietly. It's life changing, really. Do better than conservatives. Conservatives I read was they read 5 books a year. Try to beat that. I've got my kids on 12 book a year program. They have to read 1 book a month or I turn off their internet. So a good book too, not like a little flimsy thing. They got to read a good book. And then do a book report on it just for us. 12 months out of the year, they lose their internet for a month. Reading helps. It really does. Teaches empathy, patience, all that good stuff. I hope you guys find it all. I hope you guys are, find your peace. If you need a podcast like this to just scream into the void and get it off your chest so you can sleep better at night, by all means do it. This is more a therapy session for me than it is for anybody else. And it does help, and so even if they do blacklist me, kick me off the air because they think I'm an asshole, it wouldn't really matter. I'd probably still do it. I'd find somewhere. and throw it out there. Even if it is just screaming into the void, you guys are doing me a favor by listening. Get vaccinated, absolutely. If you are even remotely close to where these measles outbreaks are, definitely get an update on that one. And yeah, try to eat a few more plants, maybe a few more veggies. Always good for you. Beans are good for you. They're happy. And hug someone you love. We'll see you guys next time.
Viva la resistance!